for the length, but touched 3 markers and was penalized 30 points for that. So he scored only 270 points and a total of 1,230, 40 points behind Gisli Gunnar. And third after this course was Helgi Schiet, 1,210 points, 50 points from the leader. The 7th and second last course, the river. It had been decided by the organizers that this time the river should be driven upstream, which turned out badly for most of the competitors because the ignition couldn't take water its way and most of the engines stalled in the water. However, that didn't happen to Gisli Gunnar, who got the best time, 27.31 seconds, and scored 300 points for length and only 10 penalty points, and maintained his lead with 1,560 points. This is Gunnar Eilsson, scoring 270 points, pulling himself into 4th place with 1,380 points, a total of 180 points behind Gisli Gunnar, with only 1 course to go. Sigurður Þór Jónsson got the 3rd best time, but Sigurður Arnar Jónsson got the 6th best time, but maintaining the 2nd place overall with 1,440 points, only 120 points behind Gisli Gunnar Jónsson. And only the infamous swamp to go. As usual at Hedla, the last course was the infamous swamp, and this course has always been difficult. Gisli Gunnar Jónsson goes first through the swamp. This time there were a lot of water and it's very difficult to make turns. And before long, Gisli Gunnar Jónsson got stuck with 150 points. And that meant that 2 competitors could catch him up. Sigurður Þór Jónsson and Sigurður Arnar Jónsson. Now Sigurður Þór Jónsson only scored 70 points in this course and finished in 5th place overall with 470 points. Sigurður Arnar Jónsson was amongst the last to go into the course after there had been some problems pulling those that got stuck out of the swamp. And in order to win the event, he would have to finish the course, but his car didn't make it, so Gisli and his crew celebrated the victory. The only one that made it through the course was Gunnar Eilsson. He, however, went out of the course without the judges noticing, and therefore they deemed him to have finished the course, and that caused another dispute after a protest had been lodged. As we can see, Gunnar goes outside the marker, but the judges presumed that Gunnar went over the flag. But with the mud flying everywhere, it was impossible for the judge to see it clearly. And like in some other sports, Gunnar has the benefit of a doubt. If, for instance, a footballer is deemed offside, there are no questions asked afterwards. What the referee says is right. Gisli Gunnar Jónsson was hailed by his supporters at the finish, but look at what Gunnar Eilsson does when he gets the bottle. Now look at this. There was also a fierce battle between Gunnar Pálmi Pétursson, who as Gisli Gunnar had secured himself the championship title before this round, and Ásgeir Jamil Allarsson, who changed over from the modified class at the middle of the season and had just won the World Cup. Ásgeir Jamil, before this event, has never lost to Gunnar Pálmi. If Gunnar Pálmi Pétursson won this event, he, as Gisli Gunnar, would take the title with a full house of points in the championship battle. Gisli Gunnar scored 80 points in the championship battle, and Gunnar Pálmi aimed for the same. In the beginning, Ásgeir Jamil Allarsson, who from last July has created a real battle in the street legal class, was leading the battle in the class. But like someone said, it ain't over till it's over, because in the last course, Gunnar Pálmi snatched the lead. His experience came in hand. But Gunnar Pálmi went as far as Gisli Gunnar, scored 160 points, and then everyone just waited for Ásgeir Jamil, as well as Gunnar Gunnarsson, who suddenly had a chance of winning the event. But he didn't finish the course. And as you remember in the program in the beginning, Gunnar Gunnarsson's car caught on fire. But Ásgeir Jamil, he went too fast in a turn. So he has to come back and go through the gate again. And he goes around. Misses the gate. Tries another round. And then the car says, stop. I'm not doing this. So Gunnar Palmi finishes in the first place, thus finishing the championship season as Gisli Gunnar with a full house. Ásgeir Jamil finished second and Gunnar Gunnarsson third. But let's take a look at the two champions. Why Gisli Gunnar Jónsson and Gunnar Palmi Pétursson are the Icelandic champions for the second year running. First of all, both of them are well prepared and both have very good vehicles, which are always in top shape, even though Gunnar Palmi has shown some slack in that department this year. Ásgeir Jamil has been giving you a hard battle in the last few events. Yes, and I quite like it, because sometimes the margin between the first seats has been too much, so it's better to have a battle. What about the results in your class today? I'm going to win, no doubt. What does it take to win this event? It's just to drive as usual, but it's a question of motivation and taking it easy. You have been having problems with your car this season. Why? It's mostly because I haven't had enough time. I just don't have the time to do this. This is getting to be an extra hobby. Is the car in perfect order today? Yes, I don't know otherwise. Well, except for one ignition cable we had to change. Gunnar Palmi Pétursson is such a good driver that even though he's in the street legal class, he was teasing some of the drivers in the modified class when he scored better than some of them in many courses. He did that by showing outstanding driving skills, even though he didn't show that here in the river, where his transmission couldn't stand the sudden cooling when the car hit the water, and the car didn't move, though the engine was working. Gunnar Palmi used his experience when it was time for the last course. He had So it's a question of right speed. Gunnar hasn't been getting much competition from the other competitors in the street legal class this season until Ásgeir Jamil Allarsson switched from the modified class last July. Ásgeir Jamil brought new blood to the street legal class, and as well as giving Gunnar Pálmi a hard battle, he also won the World Cup this season. Gísli Gunnar Jónsson has also proved how important it is to have the competition vehicle in a good order. Gísli Gunnar is also very determined when he's competing, calculates his risks, and I think it's safe to say that no one spends more time studying the courses than Gísli Gunnar Jónsson. But this season, this is not all that has made Gísli Gunnar the Icelandic champion. He has also had some help from the other competitors. Einar Gunnarsson, who has been fighting Gísli Gunnar since 1993, was one of those that helped Gísli Gunnar without intending to do so. In the first round at Akureyri, Einar carelessly touched the marker, losing 20 points, and in that event, Gísli Gunnar won by only 15 points. And again in the third round, Einar got greedy and wanted to score 300 points for a course where some of the others scored 250 points, and Einar scored nil. Einar finished that round in second place, 5 points behind Gísli Gunnar. This is Gunnar Egilsson. Sometimes shows outstanding performance, but in between he makes silly mistakes. Maybe because in 1994 he made a rather nasty jump in the event at Akranes, so he sometimes gets stuck in his belly like he does here. Ragnar Skúlason is a competitor who always does well in difficult courses. It looks like he sneaks through without any effort and always scores well in the more difficult courses. However, when it comes to the short and easy courses, it seems like he thinks that they can be driven without concentration, and that is not the road to success. In the third course in this event, he tried for 300 points, where he should have had settled for 280. That cost him the chance of winning this event. Ragnar finished fourth in the battle for the championship title. Now Sigurður Þór Jónsson, who is one of those that can really make Gísli Gunnar having to fight, is one similar to Ragnar Skúlason. Does well in the more difficult courses, but is tempted to think that the more easy courses are so simple that it's nearly not worth driving them. Those courses, he loses valuable points. And when counting those drivers, we must include Helgi Schütt, who won the second round of the World Cup last August. Then for the first time this season, his car stayed in working order throughout an event. Helgi has been breaking his transfer case or his front axle in various events, that happening because of the enormous power in his car. This shows only that there must be a balance between the power of the engine and the components that are supposed to get the engine power to the ground. But still, Gísli Gunnar Jónsson has what it takes. He's got guts, he's determined, and he's the highest overall scoring driver in the Formula Off-Road since 1993. Now he's the champion for the third time, first in 1993, again last year, and now he's the Icelandic champion for 1998. But even though he would have liked to, he didn't win the World Cup, as he lost to the beginner Sigurður Arnar Jónsson. Total points for 1998 season: number 5, Sigurður Þór Jónsson; number 4, Ragnar Skúlason; number 3, Gunnar Egilsson; number 2, Einar Gunnlaugsson; and number 1, the champion, Gísli Gunnar Jónsson. Gunnar Pálmi Pétursson was 6th overall. He was the winner in the street legal class. Total points in the street legal class for the 1998 season: number 4, Rafn Arnar; number 3, Gunnar Gunnarsson; number 2, Gunnar Guðmundsson; and number 1, Gunnar Pálmi Pétursson. But there were more competitors in this event that amused the spectators. Here we have Gunnar Ásgeirsson, who we see rolling over. In the fourth, Guðmundur Pálsson, who was in the lead in the beginning, nearly rolled over backwards. But by quick thinking, he got the car into reverse and saved himself. Árni Pálsson, who's done some weird stunts, was supposed to go all the way up, but his car refused to go up and went straight down. His car is like the cat. He has a mind of his own. And here in the swamp, he nearly rolled over, but was able to save himself. But here he goes sailing through the river, but he is not aiming in the right direction, and therefore he went deep in and had to spend some time in there, in the river. But still, Árni is a competitor that could do very well if he had the financial means to support him. Add some more battle into the street legal class next season. But Árni Pálsson did more than showing good performance. He made a blunder in the third course. There he rolled over. This completes the Formula Off-Road, the 1998 season in Iceland. Until next time, please fasten your seatbelts wherever you are. From Iceland, I'm Gulli Helgason.
On this event. And here is a replica of the Rakow Hill being worn as a hat. What a fabulous device that certainly looks as headgear goes. Well, the human sponge not really doing too well, going for the negative record, not really meeting with the appreciation of this hugely knowledgeable crowd. Well, here is an East German rider from Saxony. And a big group of them have been coming year after year, and they get bigger and bigger. That'll be the beer then. Here's a combination of a mailbox and satellite dish, otherwise known as the USS Enterprise. Big prize money here, incidentally, for the outfits regarded as the most outlandish, presumably on a clapometer audience response. Whoa, Ride-'em Cowboy. Again, changing down there might not have been an altogether bad idea. Well, now this is going to be quite a superb device. Clearly, you can see. Oh, he's got his sleeves rolled up. He really does mean business. Either that or to lose an awful lot of flesh on the forearm. But no, what a fantastic ride. 145 meters. He really did mean business. Fantastic stuff. That's Peter Jöbstel of Austria. 148 meters, 486 feet is the final count, and that's the best practice run. Well, Ben-Hur ready to roll. You have to wonder who is the most foolish of the pair, the one steering or the one trusting his friends to do a half-decent job. At least they didn't get into the danger area before it all went pear-shaped. So the fall of the Roman Empire. Now, this is last year's winner. This is Peter Ziffer Dornitzhuber. He has to qualify, like all the others, to defend his champion's status, and he gets to 130 and a bit more. But he's only 6th in the practice round. 134, that was marked out by the judges, but it went down well with the crowd. And we've had the Roman Empire. Now we're going to go for the Wild West routine. And with a few horsepower up front, but absolutely no brain power, that was never really destined for success, was it? Circle the wagons. Oh, excellent. The motorcycles don't work, but the firearms do. Good to see we've got our priorities right. Well, now this... Oh, don't, please. This is a modified skidoo. He's taken the skis off and put some wheels on, and actually, it's doing a superb job so far. Now, if only he'd learn how to steer it by keeping the wheels on the ground, presumably, he might have a winner on his hands. Alternatively, of course, what it might mean is that he just needs to buy a new skidoo for the winter, since this one seems to be disassembling itself into a kit of parts at fairly rapid speed. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Well, with 100 brake horsepower, he certainly needs to be further forward on the machine to keep those wheels on the ground. But otherwise, I think there might be a few people here watching this and going, that's either a good idea or a very good waste of a perfectly usable skidoo. But an expensive accident, and the crowd love it. Crikey. Serious stuff now. Manfred Kainz, the record holder, with, get this, 158 metres in a practice round in 1995. 96, he was the winner at 150 metres, and he really is still one of the favourites. The crowd cheering him to the echo. Massive roar you can hear echoing up the valley. Second in qualifying, and no doubt about it, he will go into the main competition. Even our starter, look, actually noticed that one. Hurrah, says a young fan. Oh dear. Well, it's just as well that we've seen Frenchmen making fools of themselves and Austrians making fools of themselves, because there, ladies and gentlemen, was a Dutchman making a fool of himself. And this is how to get your bike down the hill in good nick, just to leave it at the top and get it cranes down. And another Dutchman, you can tell from the orange shirt and the lack of knowledge about what to do with a hill. Hill climbs, of course, not being the prevalent form of motorcycle sport in Holland, a country singularly known for its resemblance to an ironing board. Yes, yes, it's orange. Yes, we can tell from your haircut you're Dutch. Probably in the army as well. Well, a valiant attempt on the cameraman there, but sadly his trajectory just slightly misjudged. You're hopeless and you know it, mate, says the speaker. Well, that's day one, the qualifying rounds then, and here are the serious contenders. Peter Jörpstel just outpointing Manfred Kainz, both of them winners on this hill. And Germany's Bernd Heller, third quickest. And what do you do when the action stops? You blow up tyres, engines, and then you drink and have a barbecue. That's what. It's like the British Grand Prix at Silverstone, only with a hill. Sort of. More action after the break. And oh Lord, please don't let them introduce a car class for 1999. That's all we need. That screen should be on Eurosport, and they know it. More action from Rakow in just a moment. Don't go away. Dire straits, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not talking about the band, I'm talking about the competitors and the crowd in dire straits after a dreadfully long night of debauchery, drink and other things beginning with D. Well, day two of the Rakow Hill Climb competition, the Red Bull Hill Climb, and the qualifiers get underway at the crack of 9 o'clock in the morning. Good run from the first man up the hill. And this is Andy Zimmerer, the Bavarian motorcycle dealer. He gets 8th overall. Here's a three-wheeler using a passenger for ballast and for a soft landing, presumably. Says here that the idea of having a passenger is that in a crash, it will help to steady the vehicle. Rubbish. It will do nothing of the sort. It will allow the rider to fall on something softer than slate. Doesn't do much for the machine though, does it? But it's a spectacular looking device. Crowd awake now, on their feet. Suddenly the marshal is looking a little bit more jaded. So here is Bagheera, our top-riding lady Austrian, and making her mark at 140 metres, I think we can safely conclude there. Well, one wheel over the 140-metre sign means 141 metres, 15th overall. And here's the Flying Dutchman, and the big 620 stroker. Go on, rev, 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 oh dear, abandoned ship far, far too early. He may be Dutch, but he's not entirely dim. He gets out of the way of the machine at least. Not enough there to get in amongst the top riders. He hits the fatal flick and then runs.
For Oleg Maskayev. So once again, he's the Pan-Asian boxer. Will turn up for the books, possibly. Maskayev, by the way, ranked 37 in the world by the Independent World Boxing ranking weight. And a New Zealander. In fact, Maskayev. This was on paper, a complete mismatch. Watch this right hook. As an amateur, in fact, Maskayev won 108 fights and lost just 10. He's a lieutenant in the army, won a gold medal for the army national team. And lost on a split decision in his 10th amateur contest for the Russian title. And in those days, of course, that took some winning. Silver medalist in the World Championships in 1992, having missed the
motorcycles and an all-day party. Well, these sorts of hill climbs are becoming more and more popular these days, and certainly they seem to be drawing as big crowds as the more standard off-road events. Well, it's a little-known fact that hill climb events have long been a tradition, particularly in the United States, and they had serious origins as well. Over 80 years ago, when the motorcycle was introduced, being the biggest and best and the highest climber on hills was a good way of proving the performance of these rudimentary machines. The higher the bike made it up the hill, the better it sold on Monday morning. A lot of factory riders took part in these hill climb events, and until the late 40s, hill climbs were still the most popular motorcycle sport in the States. Today it's still big news in the USA, and a lot of professional riders still go out on weekends to ride the hills. Well, it's a little different than some of the events we'll be seeing here. The European Trail, not quite so serious all the way, and events like the Rakow Hill Climb particularly drawing huge crowds. Well, the good news is that despite the fears that it might not happen again, Rakow is back for 1998. And we have the footage to prove it. This is just a little taster of how things will go completely pear-shaped for most of the riders later on in the program. But before we get to the pièce de résistance, we're going to have a look at a few other of these unique hill climbing events from around Europe. If you're a French viewer, or particularly if you happen to be Austrian, you may want a pen and paper handy in a moment or two, and for the rest of the programme. My name's Martin Haven. This is Eurosport's Off-Road Motorcycle Magazine for September. The address is 55 Drury Lane, London. You may need it. Well, our first port of call is high in the French Alps. It's Le Grand Bornand. And it's the venue for the European event that is probably most similar to the present-day American events. It's called the Monte Impossible, the Unconquerable Mountain. 400 meters, 1,313 feet is the length of the course, and the gradient is better than 50 degrees. Well, as ever, the pastoral tranquility of a quiet country village shattered for one weekend in the year by a bunch of rowdy fools on motorcycles. And the Monte Impossible, the motorcycles really are perhaps the most over the top of any of these European events. And that's because on this event, they are not standard production machines. Oh no. They've been messed with, they've been monkeyed with, they've been toyed with, they've been tuned, they've been deformed, they've been twisted and warped into the most amazing specials you will ever witness. Minimum requirements: they must boast at least 650cc, they must be 2.5 meters, that's 8 feet long. They must have a protective cover over the rear wheel, which boasts all sorts of buckets, scoops, bolts, and anything else you like to try and improve traction. And they must also have a kill switch, which is attached to the rider's wrist, so when he and his machine part company, as is pretty much expected, then they will both come to a halt. Here's a bid for the summit on a bike called the XL. It's got 2 gas trials engines, plenty of chrome, and a very nice looking machine indeed. And if only this rider could keep the engines running cleanly, he might have a chance. It's not all about speed here, it's about momentum. Well, he got more than 200 kilos of bike almost on his head there, but he managed to get out of the way. In France, these hill climbs are considered to be sporting events as much as spectacles. Unfortunately, all that workmanship, all those late nights in the garage, all that animosity from the wife and girlfriend being trashed as it goes back down the hill. 2 Husqvarna engines in that machine. And same deal here, the big strokers in this combination. Well, the sky's the limit in terms of engines, incidentally. You can run up to 1.8 litres, and 4 cylinders are not unheard of on these machines, as opposed to just a couple. And most go for torque over ultimate power. As a result, there tend to be a few more strokers than 2 strokes. Well, no regulations on tyres. You can use thin dirt tyres in the hope that they might bite through the surface better, or you can use big racing single-seater Formula tyres. A lot of riders using Formula 3 or Formula 3000 rear covers, but this enterprising man using a Formula 1 wet weather tyre with undoubtedly hundreds of bolts bolted through. Well, let's look at the successful challenges then. And this is one of them. Solid chassis, handles relatively well, and plenty of torque. Look at the way it's eating up the ground, keeping it going. 1600cc Harley engine. This thing will pull the mountain down if it can't push the bike up it. And he's gone into the tree line, and that is a successful run. He gets to 20 meters from the finish line, right up at the top there. Baby on board? Well, goodness, let's hope not. 120 horsepower from this 4-cylinder motor. Look at those bucket scoops on the back to try and give him plenty of grip. Well, of course, not only has he got a fair amount of power here, but he's got a decent amount of weight to help improve the traction. And this 120 brake horsepower 4-cylinder motor, he's using loads and loads of revs. Now, of course, only in France could this be regarded as a serious sporting event. Well, that's it for Monte Impossible from Grand Bornand. And we move on in a moment to Austria. Yes, my friends, it's finally time to enjoy the pastoral tranquility of the Austrian hillsides. And some loonies. It is once more time for the fabled, the legendary, the world-renowned Rachau hill climb. Well, in 1996, 300 riders took part, but over 8,000 spectators on the venue, and millions more across Europe. And the format of the Rachau hill climb guaranteed its success. If you've never seen it, you're in for a treat. So this is it. This is the hill climb of all hill climbs. This is Austria's Rachau. In 1996, the first running, 300 riders, crazy costumes from the odd one, and a few crashes. In 1997, more crazy outfits, and even crazier riders. And by this time, the Rachau hill climb well established across Europe and one of the most requested features here on Eurosport. I know from letters and telephone calls that we have at the station and at our affiliate offices across Europe, this is perhaps the most widely watched and rewatched motorsport action that Eurosport has, and you can't possibly argue with an audience like that. Was on the competition element of it, trying to get as far up this terrifyingly steep hill as possible. And as you can see, the elements were essentially here already. Very steep hill, almost impossible angle of attack, mass destruction of man and machinery. And of course the usual inevitable attempt on the cameraman by some of the competitors. But look at the field at the bottom of the hill. It's green, lush pasture. And that really points out the fact that this is an early running of Rachau. As the hill climb has grown in fame and infamy, it has become a bigger and bigger spectator attraction. Well, a good attempt. The gorge at 120 metres, though, claims all but the best riders. And as more and more riders fail at that venue, at that mark, they cut a bigger and bigger hole. Well, traditional Austrian costumes being worn, and again, the riders finding that 120-metre mark is really the watershed. So 1996, the introduction of on-bike airbags for the first event, doing very little, I'm afraid, though, for rider protection. This is Karl Schmidinger, the man who runs the Mern Hill climb, showing just how professional assaults the spectators, the safety workers and the camera crews on the hill. Another attempt on the hill. And again, the machinery taking a battering. The rider, not a wise man to interfere with the forces of gravity. Well, the full rider safety suits being debuted in 1996. But as you can see, doing very little for the rider, doing a little more for the crowd perhaps. That's it, grab hold of the moving wheel. If you can't stop it with your hand, jam your foot in the works. Well now, here is something that really should have taken off, but didn't. And this was the worst crash of the year. The Honda fell back from 130 metres to 50 metres. Doing a fairly good job. 1997 and the first appearance of the Red Baron, and this man surely destined for great motorcycle glory once he gets the aerodynamic balance sorted out a little better. You can see the three front wings giving superb front downforce, and those toilet seat mountings really adding to the quality of the machine. And by this stage, the lush green pastures at the bottom of the hill, a sea of drink and debauchery. A shame we only get to do it from our studios. Well, more than 10,000 spectators at the thoroughly wet 1997 event. Lady rider Bagheera not quite getting onto the hill here, and this is the current negative distance record holder. 7 metres from the start was as far as he got. But getting to the bottom of the hill doesn't necessarily mean that you get much further. As we pointed out last year, green bikes tend to go for the green scenery. Well, now this monster 1600cc three-wheeler doing an awful lot for digging holes and making noise, but not much for actually progressing up the hill. And worse than that, it's a nightmare to stop it when it has a mind of its own to go down the hill. Run for your lives. Wisely so. Yips. And get out of the way very quickly. Now that man has been watching and learning. There is, of course, a class for specials, and they don't come much less special than this machine. Once more, the Red Baron with a trim problem. Didn't quite get the flaps up in time. Highly sophisticated engineering going on with the Jawa three-wheeler. And another Kawasaki making a bid to join the green stuff. Oh dear. Going up in top gear is not the way, really, is it? Plenty of torque with the four-stroke, but you really could use the gearbox as well if you felt like it. Well, here comes the most painful accident of 1997. He really should have just stayed at the bottom and got his mates to kick him a lot. And finally, the last attempt. But problems again with that bank. Perhaps 6 wings this week, and a narrower width will give him better results. Well, more from Raquel, this year's event, in a moment.
The Australian Grand Prix.
This is it, the 1998 Raquel Hill Climb. It has become the Woodstock of the off-road motorcycle scene. The camp at the bottom of the hill stretches 2.5 miles along the valley, and the event is really becoming a very major economic factor in this corner of Austria. Even the Scots have heard of it. Sadly, the local tourist board seems to be completely oblivious of the fact that it's happening. Clearly, they don't get Eurosport. Well, here is the massive, massive camp of travellers that come to watch this spectacle, and fine specimens all. They could even be a NASCAR crowd, couldn't they? Well, the locals are certainly aware of Rakow, and like any other tourist invasion, they either bed down and ignore it or make the best of the bad deal. And a huge bonhomie in the campsites. And a huge entry as well. 460 riders from 6 different countries, all going for one of the 350 places on the climb proper. Well, early morning start. The mountain still in shadow. And at the top of the hill, the Red Bull Arch with light shining down through the trees to show everybody where they should be aiming for. And our official starter is a retired White House official. Not recently retired, you understand. He was once stationed in Greenland, which is where his costume comes from apparently, and undoubtedly he should be sent straight back there. Somebody ought to mention to him that beards are grown on the face and not around the bottom of the throat. But everybody is about ready to go, and the official starter gets them underway. So the first rider is the local postman, and despite again another very wet Austrian surface, he's having a good run, and this is really setting an early mark up to 130 metres. Superb start by the local postie. And the day is all about the elimination rounds. The best 100 qualify for the competition on Sunday. And he won't be one of them, will he really? But the atmosphere is what it's all about, and early in the morning, they're really in the party atmosphere. By Sunday evening, there will be nearly 200,000 spectators. Well, what about the competitors? What about preparation? Question here is, what's the preparation for your run? He said, I drank about 20 litres of beer last night. Does it help? It says it helps numb the pain a little. Nothing else helps. Well, the human beer sponge in action. And as you can imagine from the costume, not doing too well, but some of the serious competitors do actually manage to get a few meters past. And here is that magic 130 barrier. That is a good run. Not quite what we're looking for, and this may not be either. This is a Harley prototype. It's nearly 13 feet long, which is over 4 meters. He can't ride it in a straight line quite clearly, and when it gets to the hill, it's a little bit knackered as well. And again, surely, even though it's a 4-stroke, the odd rev might make a difference. Well, more and more fun seekers coming in on this event. And here is a replica of the Rakow Hill being worn as a hat. What a fabulous device that certainly looks as headgear goes. Well, the human sponge not really doing too well, going for the negative record, not really meeting with the appreciation of this hugely knowledgeable crowd. Well, here is an East German rider from Saxony, and a big group of them have been coming year after year, and they get bigger and bigger. That'll be the beer then. Here's a combination of a mailbox and satellite dish, otherwise known as the USS SSSS Enterprise. Big prize money here, incidentally, for the outfits regarded as the most outlandish, presumably on a clapometer audience response. Whoa, Ride-'em Cowboy, again changing down there, might not have been an altogether bad idea. Well, now this is going to be quite a superb device. Clearly you can see, oh, he's got his sleeves rolled up. He really does mean business, either that or to lose an awful lot of flesh on the forearm. But no, what a fantastic ride, 145 meters. He really did mean business. Fantastic stuff. That's Peter Yerbstel of Austria. 148 meters, 486 feet is the final count, and that's the best practice run. Well, Ben-Hur ready to roll. You have to wonder who is the most foolish of the pair, the one steering or the one trusting his friends to do a half-decent job. At least they didn't get into the danger area before it all went pear-shaped. So the fall of the Roman Empire. Now, this is last year's winner. This is Peter Ziffer Dornitzhuber. He has to qualify, like all the others, to defend his champion's status, and he gets to 130 and a bit more. But he's only sixth in the practice round. 134, that was marked out by the judges, but it went down well with the crowd. And we've had the Roman Empire. Now we're going to go for the Wild West routine. And with a few horsepower up front, but absolutely no brain power, that was never really destined for success, was it? Circle the wagons. Oh, excellent. The motorcycles don't work, but the firearms do. Good to see we've got our priorities right. Well, now this... Oh, don't, please. This is a modified skidoo. He's taken the skis off and put some wheels on, and actually... it's doing a superb job so far. Now, if only he'd learn how to steer it by keeping the wheels on the ground, presumably, he might have a winner on his hands. Alternatively, of course, what it might mean is that he just needs to buy a new skidoo for the winter, since this one seems to be disassembling itself into a kit of parts at fairly rapid speed. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Well, with 100 brake horsepower, he certainly needs to be further forward on the machine to keep those wheels on the ground. But otherwise, I think there might be a few people here watching this and going, that's either a good idea or a very good waste of a perfectly usable skidoo. But an expensive accident, and the crowd love it. Crikey. Serious stuff now. Manfred Kainz, the record holder, with, get this, 158 meters in a practice round in 1995. 96, he was the winner at 150 meters, and he really is still one of the favourites. The crowd cheering him to the echo. Massive roar you can hear echoing up the valley. Second in qualifying, and no doubt about it, he will go into the main competition. Even our starter, look, actually noticed that one. Hurrah, says a young fan. Oh dear. Well, it's just as well that we've seen Frenchmen making fools of themselves and Austrians making fools of themselves, because there, ladies and gentlemen, was a Dutchman making a fool of himself. And this is how to get your bike down the hill in good nick, just to leave it at the top and get it cranes down. And another Dutchman, you can tell from the orange shirt and the lack of knowledge about what to do with a hill. Hill climbs, of course, not being the prevalent form of motorcycle sport in Holland, a country singularly known for its resemblance to an ironing board. Yes, yes, it's orange. Yes, we can tell from your haircut you're Dutch. Probably in the army as well. Well, a valiant attempt on the cameraman there, but sadly his trajectory just slightly misjudged. You're hopeless and you know it, mate, says the speaker. Well, that's day one, the qualifying rounds then, and here are the serious contenders. Peter Yerbstel just outpointing Manfred Kainz, both of them winners on this hill. And Germany's Bernd Heller, third quickest. And what do you do when the action stops? You blow up tyres, engines, and then you drink and have a barbecue. That's what. It's like the British Grand Prix at Silverstone, only with a hill. Sort of. More action after the break. And oh Lord, please don't let them introduce a car class for 1999. That's all we need. That screen should be on Eurosport, and they know it. action from Rakow in just a moment. Don't go away. Dire Straits, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not talking about the band, I'm talking about the competitors and the crowd in dire straits after a dreadfully long night of debauchery, drink and other things beginning with D. Well, day 2 of the Rakow Hill Climb competition, the Red Bull Hill Climb, and the qualifiers get underway at the crack of 9 o'clock in the morning. Good run from the first man up the hill. And this is Andy Zimmerer, the Bavarian motorcycle dealer. He gets 8th overall. Here's a three-wheeler using a passenger for ballast and for a soft landing, presumably. Says here that the idea of having a passenger is that in a crash, it will help to steady the vehicle. Rubbish, it will do nothing of the sort. It will allow the rider to fall on something softer than slate. Doesn't do much for the machine though, does it? But it's a spectacular looking device. Crowd awake now, on their feet. Suddenly the marshal is looking a little bit more jaded. So here is Bagheera, our top riding lady Austrian, and making her mark at 140 metres, I think we can safely conclude there. Well, one wheel over the 140 metre sign means 141 metres, 15th overall. And here's the Flying Dutchman, the big 620 stroker. Go on, rev, 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 oh dear, abandoned ship far, far too early. He may be Dutch, but he's not entirely dim. He gets out of the way of the machine at least. Not enough there to get in amongst the top riders. He hits the fatal flick and then runs. Well, the audience giving him a big appreciation on that one. Oh, the Roman Legion sending out an exploratory probe up the hill on his own. Not doing a bad job so far. I don't think the Goths, the Visigoths, or indeed the Huns will be too worried by that run. Do you know, people actually do this for fun? Yes. Sad, sad man. Well, now protected species being put into operation here. This giant panda from the Vienna Zoo had a motorcycle inserted into it surgically. As you can see, this attempt at creating a new species not wildly successful. And this is an attempt at making sure that 3 Austrians don't contribute to the continuation of the species. That perhaps a little better. Beam me up, Scotty. Oh dear. Clearly, space technology in Austria yet to reach the level of throwing things up in the air. Well, here's a trials rider on a trials machine. You would think he might stand a stop messing about hopping up and down and continued to concentrate on the hill. He might have got further than the 130 metres, the 427-foot mark. Vital refreshments for the top of the hill there. And here is our JATO, jet-assisted takeoff rider. Oh dear, misfiring on the rockets, and he didn't quite get the altitude he needed there. He needs to get the firing order sorted out a little bit better. Oh, determination here. Over 130. Ouch. And 150, 195, 226, 247, 276 pounds and 33 pence worth of damage there. Here's our man with the best record for not going very far, and he now doesn't even get off the start ramp when the engine dies. Well, he does get a record for his troubles. He got 4 meters. Well, now this, as you can see, is a VW Beetle Jeep combination, and during the lunch break, it shows how far you can go if you have the faintest idea of what you're doing. The big problem, of course, is that he doesn't want to get into trouble and have it roll. So he chickens out. Well, you would too. Impressed? No, don't think so. Well, he got 105 meters up the hill, and just at the part of the course where it suddenly snaps into a 45-degree angle. And his big question, of course, is will he get it back down safely? The crowd hope not. He hopes so. Well, here is a good way for father and daughter to spend the weekend. I don't recommend it, but obviously it's big in Bavaria. And the gallant father using his daughter as the cushion on the back, so that when he falls off, he's got something nice and soft to land on. Here's another group effort. The white helmets, it ain't. And I'm afraid the big 1300 four-cylinder engine just couldn't cope with 2 Austrian loonies. Let's look at some more serious attacks on the hill now. This really is a very committed effort and gets good results. Over 140 meters there. Shame he couldn't hold on to the machine. It's a Husaberg, that's Swedish metal. Sorry, that's Swedish scrap metal. Oh, not bad. Not bad at all. And this year's successful riders are starting to open up the trench at the 130-meter mark, and is now slightly more passable. So we're seeing a few more 140-meter runs. 140 in the last couple of years really has been the holy grail, but another good run. Excellent. Well past 140. That's 145. Peter Jöbstel, the practice round winner then, 145.5 meters. Don't forget that extra foot and a bit. 477 foot, 7 inches. Well, that gets him 5th overall. Now let's have a few of the French prototype riders from the Monte Impossible. Well, if their Monte is Impossible, then I don't know quite what the French for even worse than impossible is. Probably something unpronounceable, as he was just mouthing there as the motorcycle decided to use him as a short route down. And now it moves into self-destruct cycle. Well, that was David Claras, 3rd in the specials, and here again are our Western pioneers. And we seem to have a little difference of opinion as to which direction away from the hill they're taking. Cookie is coming up from behind with the barbecue. And the marshals are well impressed by that run as well. Now Bagheera coming again. In fact, not yet. This is a slightly more sensible option. And the big tanks really helping with that front end. Oh! Close to 150s. It's 149.5. 3rd overall and best placed 4-stroker there. 490 feet. This is Peter Ziffer Donitshuber. Last year's winner. Can he do it again? Still going? No, he's run out of steam. Well, the 4-stroker made 5 feet further up, so he goes into 4th place, last year's winner. Well, he'll be disappointed with that. And just doing a little bit of a Valentino Rossi impression there down in the crowd. Here's the man who comes home 5th in the specials class. Although, what's special about this machine, I find it hard to imagine. Other than its novel use of big plastic balls. Well, the skidoo being fixed. Let's see how he goes here. A little bit more tentative early on. He needs to lean forward, keep those wheels on the ground, or it won't steer at all with the drive belt. Get your weight forward, mate. Well, 100 horsepower, he's got the power to go up. Go on. Give it a big handful. Don't girly out now. Keep going. dear, oh dear. Look, he's trying to get it back down without destroying the thing again. 120 metres. But he's really now suffering the effects of gravity, and oof! Away it goes, finally making its own bid for freedom. And the skidoo will be a skidoo less than it did before in a moment or two. Rolling itself into a little sausage-shaped mess. And they love that, don't they? The more expensive the destruction, the more they like it. And it doesn't have to be in terms of mechanical expense either. I think that may well have exerted or exacted some revenge on the rider. So here is the leader from the practice round, his last run up, and he doesn't better his previous run. So only 5th position for him. But the Roman Empire about to strike back. They're giving it a good run this time. Let's see if Dobbin can get them up to the first photographer before they lose control. No chance at all. Roman Empire falls again. And the Huns and the Visigoths love it. Well, here we go. A 4-cylinder rather, 3-wheeler, no passenger combination. Looks like a bit of a better idea. Trying to get it to start. Give up, mate, it stopped. Well, he manages to stop it at least. Here is Martin Dies of Germany. I wonder if he's any relation of Rick Dies and the cast of idiots. Certainly a cast of idiots around here, and he makes it to 140, but his bike very nearly to 150, and he's given the 150 mark. So he takes over the lead. Well, now, muted applause from the starter. The crowd love it, but wait, they don't realise it's not an Austrian. So, now with the hopes of Austria riding on his shoulders, Manfred Kainz. Can he save Austria at the Rachau hill climb? He's giving it his very best shot. 150 metres is the mark he needs to make. He gets there, the bike goes 154 metres. Well, it never did. Never in a month of Sundays did the bike get past the 150-metre board, but the Austrians, needing to win, claim that it did. And so with a deft amount of local cheating, 505 feet, 6 inches, 154 metres is the mark for Manfred Kainz. And the starter and the rest of the cheating crowd loving it all the way to the Echo. So, well, 154, perhaps it was 150, perhaps we should have seen a tie, but you can't let the Germans win. So the Rachau hill climb is won by Austria once more. Next year, the 5th anniversary, the organisers are planning, they say, something special, something outrageous, and a new selection process. The emphasis will be on barking outfits, encouraged with even more prize money. Otherwise, the event will stay the same. Undoubtedly the most insane motorcycle event in Europe, in the world, unless, of course, you know different. So that's it from Rachau for 1998. I know from response we've had over the years that we will be covering this again in 1999. Manfred Kainz winning by dint of some deft cheating by the Austrians, and Josef Weishaupt also winning the specials class. But the spectators, as ever, the real winners at Rachau. Well, if you do wish to complain, my name is Martin Haven, writes to Eurosport at 55 Drury Lane, London. If you do wish to complain, and you're Austrian, I do give you my deepest sympathies. I'm sorry, I went there last week and I caught a very bad cold. You have only yourselves to blame. Rachau Hill Climb will be back, bigger, better, and even more insane in 1999. Off-Road Magazine returns next month. Join us then. Until then, Martin Haven saying thank you for watching. Sorry for being Austrian. Bye-bye. Well, for the first time in truck trial history, the competition is actually taking place in a capital city in Europe, and as the organizer says, it wasn't very difficult to organize the trial here in Berlin because they're big motorsport fans, and having been in the East for a long while, they haven't had much access to it. Well, Berlin first noted in the annals of history in 1244 as a town, and of course most recently famed not only for the Berlin Wall going up, but more famed perhaps for it coming down. Since 1991, when the wall and all the divisions in Germany fell away under the view of Marx and Engels, the founders of the Eastern Bloc effectively, under their Marxist regimes, building has continued throughout Berlin. It's the capital of Germany and a new capital rising from the old. Well, as ever, before the competition gets underway, all the trucks are examined for safety measures and for technical regularity to make sure they comply to the rules of their classes. And everybody gets a chance to draw running orders from the hat and look around the course as well. Check out where they will be heading. We'll have a look now at the trucks in Class 2. It's S2, S standing for series production trucks. There are two prototype classes as well. And these are the middleweights of the series production class, ranging from 4.5 up to 6.5 tons. But most of the vehicles are defined by length and wheelbase. The wheelbase between 2.8 and 3.8 meters in length, and the track, that's across the vehicle between the wheels, 1.75 meters as a maximum. And a lot of Unimogs in the two junior classes, in the standard production classes, Class 1 and this one, Class 2. That was the Unimog, and Anton Alfers and Alexander Budde making short work of this man-made section here. This is the same section, and this is a Gas 66 machine. Another German crewing in this one, Uwe Weder and Harry Scheidenhauer. Very different vehicle from the Mercedes-built Unimog. But you'll see quite a lot of Eastern European vehicles in this series. Of course, Germany really ideally placed for that, on the cusp between Western Europe and Eastern Europe. And there's a lot of Czech and Russian vehicles here. The Gas is one of the latter. Here, Gerhard Müller and Iris Rebecca Urban in their IFA W50. And they're going through the same set of obstacles, but they're just using a slightly different route between the posts. You can see the coloured tape on the posts there. Each class has one colour of tape, and by walking around the course and spotting which posts have got your coloured tape on, you can work out through which sets of gates you have to go. Not all the vehicles do all of the courses. Some of the obstacles are too small for the bigger trucks, and some are too big for the smaller trucks, if you get my drift. And so they do take various different routes through the courses. That was Harald Winkler and Frank Rudiger, also of Germany, sharing with René Langer, a three-partner crew. And they have another of the Gas 66s, number 204. This is a Unimog 416. This is a pairing of the Baum brothers, Dirk and Torsten, also from Germany. Here they are in a different zone though, section 11. It's pretty tight technically, not really challenging in terms of topography, but you have to be very, very careful with the speed here. And use of the steering and the brakes is just as vital here as anywhere else. Same zone, this is 216. They're a new team, another German pairing. Jürgen and Elke Kottkamp, husband and wife partnership, and they have also got an IFA W50. If you wonder why in a truck you need two people in it, well, they're intercommed up. You can see quite clearly there. Jürgen got the intercom there in the middle of his beard. And that is because, of course, you can only see out of one side when you're between a set of posts. The other set of posts is 6 odd feet away and you can't see where it is. That's why the co-drivers are so vital here. 215, another new team. Uwe Weber and Harry Scheinhauer. And they are going through. In fact, the number's rather confusing there. That is the number 215. So it's Ronnie Gajerski and Gunnar Fiebisch, in fact. Sharing their vehicle with 211. It's the Gas 66 machine again. So, oh dear, their numbering really has gone to pot. Perhaps that was last time out's numbers still left on it, because here is 211. Wolfgang Alfers and Ralph Kasson in an obviously very different vehicle. This is a Unimog U1300. And this section producing very few problems for them. And Wolfgang Alfers, the driver, sharing that vehicle with his brother Anton, who we saw earlier on. This is the same section, zone 16. This is 201, Czech duo, Pavel Kachak and Pavel Bernashek, and they are the reigning European truck child champions in Class 2 in their Praha UV80 Czech-built truck. And they've been having a good season so far, intent on retaining their European Championship class title. Well, they have a good run through zone 16. They come in second, in fact, with 8 penalty points. Dirk Baum and Torsten Baum, who we saw earlier, the brothers in their Unimog were best, and they only picked up 6 penalty points on that section. 212, Ronnie Meller and Ramona Knies in another IFA, and they're another pair who have started competition this year, but they run out of time. They get completely stuck there. Here is the marshal handing out and noting the penalties. The marshals with the blue t-shirts are the course builders. They're the ones responsible for putting back the posts when the trucks have thoroughly flattened them. So the results in Class 2. Dirk and Torsten Baum winning overall. A good run for them to beat the reigning champions into second place, and the Alfers brothers in third and fourth. Well, the production vehicles, prototype vehicles rather, in P1 and P2, classes 6 and 7, are very different machines indeed. This is the smaller of the two prototype classes. They have to be between 1 and 1 3/4 meters long, and their wheelbase, wide, beg your pardon, their wheelbase between 2.3 and 3.8 meters. This is section number 19, and the 601, Wolfgang Bullis and Thomas Fischer-Fritzen, the reigning European title holders, have got a brand new vehicle, and that's why they weren't out on rounds 1 or 2, because like everything else, it's just taken a lot longer to develop. 2.6 tons of it still, even though it's pretty stripped down. This is number 602, Horst Blodau. This is an Eigenbau Unimog, which means unique built Unimog. And he's been a regular in this series. Here, doing pretty well. Picks up 88 penalty points on this section, and the worst in class, losing 370 points. So not doing too badly at all there. 2 more competitors in the category. This is 605, and a pair of brothers, Andreas and Jürgen Helgeth. A fabulously weird-looking vehicle. It's called a Werner UK 52. The badge on the front gives some idea as to its initial parentage. Mercedes Unimog based. With that hydraulic articulation. Very, very capable off-roader. And the brothers doing quite nicely, thank you. .606, the other competitors, Leo Wolf and Oliver Enders. And Unimog 406, looking slightly more standard, this one, I think, than the others, you'd have to say. All German crews in this category. And they go through the same section as the brothers Helgeth. Again, clean, no penalty points for them. So several of the sections cleaned, in fact, by most of the competitors, and 3 of them, out of the 16 that they do, cleaned by all the competitors. So the prototype trucks romping through this Berlin course. And the result, Wolfgang Bullis, the reigning champion, wins on his return to the series. Plenty more action to come in this third round of the Europa Truck Trial from Berlin in Germany. Join me for more after this break. To Berlin for round 3 of the Europa Truck Trial, looking now at Class 5, the biggest of the production classes. These vehicles with a track over 1.75 meters. They must have a minimum of 4 axles. And these are the real heavyweights, between 12 and 16 tons. We're starting here with one of the pair of British crews that are newcomers to the series this year, inspired by watching it on Eurosport last year. Sorry about that, chaps. This is John Dunford and Andrew Martin. Here they are. Well, they are in Section 5, and like the crew before them, Mike Kirsch and Oliver Kirsten of Germany, they are stuck. All those driven wheels and all that weight to help them on isn't actually good enough, I'm afraid. Another of the ubiquitous Tatra 813s that rule this class. And the Czech trucks, the real behemoth behemoths of the Europa Truck Trial. Giving it a go then, 517, Elmer Wolfram and Christian Kieselbeck of Germany. And the ruts are getting deeper, aren't they? But not much else is happening. Well, they're newcomers to the trial, and they had a slightly different route up, but this shale is as sticky as anything you can imagine. 501 means they're the reigning class champions. They are the Dutch pairing, Wim Kampschreuer and Henk Alders. They're in section 4 and doing as good a job as ever. These guys, very impressive indeed. Don't worry too much about the massive overhang at the front of the truck. If it hits something in the ground, then you just put your foot down on the gas and it shoves it right out of the way and digs its own hole. 514, Tony Schulenberg and Sylvia Frank, Dutch duo. Now, if you saw our last programme from Osnabrück, you'll remember that he, coming down the big 75-metre drop into the water, he had one window missing. It seems as though he's taken them all out this time. Perhaps there are no water obstacles in the Berlin course to worry him. And Tony Schulenberg managing this section again with no problems, but you can see why they do need a co-driver. He's about 15 feet there away from the extreme opposite corner of the cab, and there's no way he's going to be able to see what on earth is going on. 507, this is the other British pairing, Neil Dineen and Nick Laws, and unless I'm very much mistaken, the two British crews sharing the same truck and just changing the number over. Well, why not? It's a very sensible way of entering. The costs split 4 ways, not only of buying their Tatra, but of course of all the safety equipment, the modifications that they make to it, the maintenance, and no small matter either, getting it to and from all the events. They've spent the last 2 events in Germany. Before that, they're in the Czech Republic. So there's usually plenty of mileage done during the year by these vehicles. So Neil Dineen and Nick Laws in section 10, and another fine job by them in that one. 515 here, Heiko Weber and Uwe Kaban. And although the rear bodywork is different, again a Tatra 813. Well, nobody going clear through section 10. Everybody picking up penalty points. In fact, section 12 was the one where most drivers were successful. All but 5 in the class coming through with 0 penalties. And that includes both the British crews. 502. This is zone 4. Another German duo, Heinrich Schutz and Friedhelm Biermann. And they're doing a good, steady job here. But it's making it around the corner without plunging down the hill and destroying every marker post in sight. That's concerning him most now. As you can see here, artificially positioned obstacles just to make what nature had intended that little bit more difficult. And the same section, this is another one of the German crews, Jens Koman and Falk Kunert. And 10 crews in this class. This is the second biggest in the entire competition. Class S2 that we saw at the beginning of the programme also has 10 competitors, but in fact it's the smallest class of all with 13 entries. That is the largest, if you like. Smallest vehicles, presumably, therefore being a little cheaper to buy and run. I'm afraid to say, not necessarily quite so much fun to watch. So Jens Koolman and Falk Kunert making it through that particular part of the course without too many problems. And here is the 813 of the second Schulenberg. This is Cor Schulenberg. He's Tony Schulenberg's dad. And there he is on the right-hand side, drives on his own, incidentally. Came third in class behind Weber and Kuban. Kampschreuer and Alders winning, but the Brits in fourth. Good result, lads. Truck trial action to come from round 3 in Berlin after the break. Join me for that. Welcome back to round 3 of the Europa Truck Trial at Berlin, and we're looking now at the smallest class of all, Class 1. These are production vehicles, and they are the real lightweights. 13 competitors in this class. We're starting in Zone 18. French team, Jackie Ribot and Bertrand Pouponneau. The French fireman duo in their Unimog 406 going in for a bit of a wade. Well, the rules here, they have to have a track between 1.5 and 1.75 of a metre in width, and they have to be between 2.8 and 3.4 metres long. And the championship runners-up last year, Jackie Ribot rather tentatively through here, picking up a bit more speed here. The Czechs 104, Yuri Speta and Vlasta Malikova, and another Unimog for them, Unimog 404, slightly different version of the ubiquitous four-wheel drive Mercedes engined workhorse. Well, they're doing a fair bit of fording on this stage, and as you can see, this not used by the bigger vehicles. The incline's a little bit too sharp. The big Tatras that we just saw would be hooked up front and rear in that particular ditch. 114 there at the top of the slope, and that's an Austrian pairing, Dietmar and Michael Kotterer. And they've got a Unimog 404, and again still in this same section. This is Zone 18. Zone 18, the first of the afternoon sections, and almost everybody, I have to tell you, got through without any problems. 0 points scored by everybody except for 114, who scored 6 points, 117, who scored 18, and 116, who came last of all with 20 points. That's a very small number to be collecting. And here is that vehicle. This is German Dieter Wendt and his brother Markus. They're in a Unimog 404, and they had the worst run through that section. Well, Helmut Rauber, brand new vehicle for him, the number 113. It's a Unimog 406, and he has Karl-Heinz Regenbrecht alongside. And he's come away from the prototypes and into the standard classes.
Leider ist die Klasse B3.
Yeah, he said, I was in the class P3 last year, but I was on my own all last year, and there's nobody at all this year, so it's pretty boring, actually. On the other hand, he said, in the standard classes, there are a lot of competitors, and some very good ones at that, so I'm going to measure myself up against them, and it's more fun to compete with somebody other than yourself. You can't argue with that, I don't suppose. And here is one of his competitors, 115, Oliver Marquette and Jan Elvitz. This is section 13. And despite the noises coming from under the vehicle there, they get through with 0 points in terms of penalties. And in fact, so does everybody else. Every single vehicle in the class managed to get through this one cleanly, which either means the organisers done a superb job or they've done a dreadful job, and I'm not quite sure how the competitors would see it. Well, it's certainly not easy though, is it? Wolfgang Krapik and Stefan Hansch here, number 112. And they are locals, Berlin registration, so they probably slept at home last night and popped in the morning just to do a bit of trialling. 117, Stefan Frenzel and Rico Lippold, and they're new to the championship this year. Didn't do too badly in Berlin, in fact, finished 3 off the bottom of the class in 11th place. Can't do my maths, I'm afraid. And a Unimog 424 for them as well. Like everybody else, managing to clean their way through here. And the yellow tape on the marker there, reflecting the fact that that was one of the gates the Class 1 vehicles have to go through. A brother and sister pairing this. Udo, the driver, and Beta Heidereich, Unimog 406, and again on zone 13, the comfort zone, I think, despite the huge stones. Enough clearance for everybody to make it through.
Ich bin zum Traktor gekommen durch
I've done a lot of 4x4 trialling before, says Udo, and I went around one of the Czech Republic to give this a try, and we really liked it. We liked it a lot, in fact, and so we've stuck with it. Sections are more difficult than in off-road trialling, he said, and the competition is much fiercer. Well, part of that competition coming from number 110, German pairing Jens Peter Vollstedt and Klaus Rasmussen. Ten gates to go through in this section. And when they walk the course, incidentally, the crews draw themselves a little map of the stage so they know which direction they should be heading next, because it's not always easy to spot. Bit of oomph up the hill there from 105. Thomas Fleckenstein and Martin Dirtschel. Well, everybody gets 3 goes to go up the hill before they get penalised out of it. That didn't seem to work either. Go on, one more try then, guys. Many more revs this time. And he's nearly there. Keep it planted. No, it's just not going to happen. Well, a slightly different approach to this time. 103 is the Belgian pairing, Stefan Ertz and Marian Glabus. They weren't in Osnabrück, the second round of the series. Well, being ski instructors, they're used to going downhill in a hurry, but they're pretty used to also being ski instructors, I'm sure, to taking a fair while to get uphill. And they're getting the thumbs down there from the first gate alone. Well, this is proving to be a remarkably tricky section, section 4. To give you an idea, the section they went through prior to this in chronological order, section 18, only 3 crews scored penalties. 6, 18 and 20 points were the scores. Everybody else got through with 0. Minimum score on this stage was 155 penalty points, and the worst score of the lot was 578 penalty points. Slightly more tricky there then. Well, the European champions, Ronald and Rita Borman. Ronald on his own in this little section. Now let's see what his huge experience can do. He's been in the Europa Truck Trials since it was first invented, and he's won the championship in Class 1 every year. Well, he's dug a big hole for himself, that's for sure. Avoiding the holes left by the others, and he's clear to the top of that one. A very good job indeed by him. Only 155 points did he lose on that. So Ronald and Rita win it then and continue in their winning ways. Rauber in second place and husband and wife Heiderreich duo in third place. Well, these are the second prototype class trucks, and this is the Skoda crew. The Czechs Jaroslav von Sovsky. Sorry, I'm having trouble with Jaroslav's surname today. And Josef Frödel. And they're in 702. This is section 16. And just 2 crews here. And with 22 points on this section, the Czech crew do much better than their rivals, the reigning Class 7 champions, Josef Auger and Fritz Holub, who scored 74. And I'm afraid the champions weren't the champions last year for no reason, and that in fact is the one of only 2 zones, in fact, that the Czechs outscore the champions. So the Austrian pairing in their Ural here, Josef Auger and Fritz Holub, going through the other 10 stages, 11 stages in fact. Slightly better than their rivals. Not much to choose between them though, it has to be said. Well, he finally made it up to the top there. Perhaps it's the extra driven axle there. So Auger and Holub winning it then from von Sovsky and Frödel. I'm sorry about that. truck action in just a moment. Round 3 of the Europa Truck Trial in Berlin, and we're looking here at Class 4. Now we're riding in the Daimler-Benz of Hermann Kranenberg and Roland Nordenbruch. This is section 6, small downhill run, and then up the other side. Well, their cab normally shared by Manfred Zerber, but our cameraman having a ride this time. Onboard technology is restricted to sitting on the transmission tunnel and holding a handycam, but you get great pictures from it anyway. Now a slightly different approach here for Andreas Pusch and Michel Landman. Their Ural 4320 will need all its power and speed to get even halfway up that slope, and no success for them this time. I wonder, will they try it the right way round? Dirk Hau, Frank Pauwik and Peter Schleier. They get just about as far in their Mercedes. No, that's not true. In fact, they were about a couple of meters short of that earlier mark. This is one of the easier zones here, zone 11. And going between the posts, the Tatra 815 of Dutch pairing Ton Stoker and Ron van Hemmeren, making it look very easy indeed. Well, it wasn't too tricky. They only lost 14 points. Nobody got through cleanly, though. 2 crews were down to just 6 points. And I'm afraid 409, Dirk Hau and Frank Pauwik, who we saw a moment or two ago, they got a whopping 100 points. Jochen Bertele and Mark Herrmann of Germany in their Iveco, and they make it fairly safely through there as well. They score just 6 points, top scoring on this one, or scoring least on this one, bottom scoring perhaps, with the number 403 Ural of Andreas Pusch and Michel Landman, which we saw earlier. 404, this is Wolfgang Bitzer and Franz Eichner in a Ural. And they take no prisoners through the water section there. This is section 17. This is 2 from the end of the event. And they're taking no prisoners on that water splash either. And they are fighting hard here for first overall. But not with this crew, I'm afraid. The chromed cab, a particular favourite of mine, I have to say. On 402, Peter Niedigersass and Gregor Haas, another Ural. What a fine-looking machine. Can't argue with that, can you? Well, that plated bodywork, excellent. And they're not worried about getting it filthy either. Well, through they go. And here, Helmut Kröppel and Hermann Antini, the Austrians, the title holders in the class in their Steyr. Perhaps without the bravado of the last couple that we've seen go through in the Urals. But that may be why they're the reigning champions. Not having a good day in Berlin, though, I'm afraid. The Austrians don't even merit a podium position here. Let's see how they navigate the water hazard. Well, successfully, if somewhat slowly. So the Slightly surprise winners, perhaps. Jochen Bertele ahead of Bitter and Aigner in second, and Stoker and Van Gemmeren, the Dutchman, in third. Well, looking at class 3 here. Starting off on section 18, Frank Langenberg and Michael Pham in their Gamma Goat. And leading the goat to water quite successfully here. Nice lazy climb up to this slightly tricky and rather technical section at the top of the hill. You can see how the goat's articulation is helping them here. And then a downhill run. And into the water at the bottom. Making short work of that as well. This is Friedmar and Christian Susmuth in the Tatra 813. With all that weight, they may be in trouble getting themselves into this hole. But as ever with the Tatras, if you put your foot down hard enough, it digs its own road out. Well, this is only the 6x6 version of the Tatra. We've seen the 8x8 versions in the big category. Well, I'm afraid that pole's seen better days, but they get themselves out of the hole anyway. This is the other Steyr 680 on the circuit, number 308, and another Austrian pairing here, father and son team, Gerhard and Michael Muth. All going well here. You can hear the onboard commentary, but in fact they were eliminated by the marshal because Michel was not wearing his crash helmet, so that cost them the maximum score of 310 penalty points, and that's a big blow to them. Well, it is the second team in the Tatra 813. Their numbers 307, Dirk Pogela and Thomas Noack. And they seem to be making it through the zone without too many problems. And that will continue. In fact, they're to get all the way through here with 0 penalty points. .309 here. Johan Bussik Senior and Johan Bussik Junior. And the Dutch father and son pairing jamming themselves into a hole here. And as Johan Junior gets out, they find themselves completely stuck. Here we go again, the same position. This is 310. This is a ZIL 131. Imo Lebens and Johannes Thompson. And the German pair. And another Marker Kane bites the dust. So the crews taking a final walk through. And now let's have a look at two ZILs, the Austrian Reicher brothers in 304 and 306. Now, they were walking the course together, but they get into the trucks and they battle each other all the way through. Rudolf Reicher with Alex Walter alongside him running the truck as 304, and when they put the 306 number on, it's Michael Reicher and Werner Medved. 306 here then, it's the younger of the brothers, Michael, and Werner Medved, Bit of a family co-driver because he used to co-drive Michael and Rudolf's father, Rudolf Sr. So this is very much a family and friends sport. Perhaps nobody demonstrating that more aptly than the Reicher family. So the results: Frank Langenberg and Michal Flam winning from the Reichers in second and third position. Well, this is a giant T-shirt signed by all the competitors as a memento of the Berlin expedition. And here is the overall points ranking. Ronald and Rita Bormann leading their class. Frank Langenberg leading his class. Wim Kampschreuer also leading his class with a maximum score. Well, we'll leave you with some musical highlights from the weekend. Round 3 of the Europa Truck Trial in Berlin. Well, a long and very tough course means going is very slow, and a lot of these competitors will arrive at camp long after nightfall. So well after midnight and the convoy heading into camp, the organisers using their very efficient radio communication system to the lost sheep before they head for day 5. Fairly short stage, only 140 kilometres of special on another tank track. But they start in the marshes, then a quick run through the forest, a long climb here and heavily rutted, full of potholes before they get to the checkpoint. This is one of the lady competitors, Ilka Evers, finding a pothole hidden there in the long grass and coming to a pretty abrupt halt. She's okay though. Disentangles herself from the bike and she will continue. 262 Vilna. Another one of the obviously huge number of German crews here. Has no problem there. His G-Wagon gets through, but surprisingly, more problems for the Range Rover. Clarence Sticker perhaps just being a little bit more cautious. Well, this is bad news. The Toyota Land Cruiser here getting thoroughly stuck. That was Liebse and Gaal. But the newer version of Eggert and Stoll managing to get out. Helping them as well with use of the tow rope. Another of the ubiquitous G-Wagons. 3 crew on that one, Byron, Vinman and Schickling. They're taking it nice and easy. And the trucks likewise, making sure they got plenty of room before they come through. Putter and Brunner with their Jeep 241. Steam coming up through the hole in the bonnet like Puffing Billy, but they seem to be pretty pleased with themselves. So on to stage 6. And a bit of a sting in the tail on the end of this one. Riders setting off in pairs, but they managed to get themselves thoroughly lost. Conditions not helping the navigation much either, as you can imagine. We just saw 55 last Kramer wading his way through. But a number of them almost missed the checkpoints by getting lost and then trying to make up speed later. This is Thomas Mark, German rider on the KTM, trying to find a reasonably dry route through. Well, again, tricky conditions for the bikes, but some of the four-wheel drive vehicles really finding themselves in trouble. Unsen and Heyman in their Toyota Hiace, they're getting thoroughly stuck and creating a real traffic jam. And Fritz Auinger, one of our regular Europa truck trial drivers here in 302, his regular man, being very helpful here, towing an awful lot of these vehicles out, and he's the wagon pulling this train load along as the first couple of rescue vehicles get lost. They're all coming through under their own steam, but with the man at the front of them giving a bit of extra assistance to get through all this slurry. Well, this G-Wagon, the 262, this is Vilna again, having a few problems as they head towards the end of the rally. Still plenty of terrain to test the drivers and the vehicles. Well, a very tough final stage to end off the Munich-Breslau marathon. Not perhaps as monstrous as some of the real long-distance enduros, events like the Master Rally, of course, but still 6 days of tough conditions and pretty torturous going, especially for the riders. Well, the bike is there. Felix Kiermaier winning on KTM, the single-cylinder class, and Werner Haubold winning the multi-cylinders. Altscheffel and Soos, rather, winning the off-road vehicle class, and Altenberger and Seat taking victory in the trucks. Well, here are the winners of the various different categories, celebrating with their trophies. Join us after the break for the final round of the FIA European Drag Series from Santa Pod.
Name the actress who plays Mary in the film There's Something About Mary. Is it Cameron Diaz, Sharon Stone or Julia Roberts? Enter our competition and you could be the lucky winner of a fantastic holiday for two in Miami, which includes 2 tickets to see the Major League Baseball team, the Florida Marlins. Plus, there's golfing and go-karting too. We've also got baseball caps up for grabs. To play, call now. And good luck.
Ein Auto habe ich noch nie gesehen. Wie sah es denn aus? Toll, ganz toll. Ich mein besonderes Kennzeichen. Ja, 6 Leute passen rein, alle auf Einzelsitzen.
Also ein Bus oder ein Van.
Nee, kleiner, so groß wie ein Kombi.
6 Leute, Einzelsitze, so klein wie ein PKW. Und gefahren ist womöglich auch noch der Schuhmacher.
Genau der war's.
Der Picknick, jetzt auch als 7-Sitzer.
Race 19 of the 1998 Card FedEx Championship Series. The last race in a season dominated by one man, Alex Zanardi. And his last race before he heads for Formula One. From Fontana, California, the Marlboro 500 at the 2-mile oval California Speedway. Kart in Sunday Thunder, Sunday night, 20:30 CET, 7:30 UK, live on Eurosport. November on Eurosport. Serving up ace tennis, crucial rugby union, and the best of winter sports. A fantastic month for tennis with extensive live coverage of the big tournaments in Paris, Moscow and Stockholm, climaxing with the World Championship in Hanover. Plus the WTA Masters, the Senior Tour and the World Doubles Championship. In rugby union, qualification is underway for next year's World Cup. We have the best of the action from around the world and live coverage of England's matches with Holland and Italy. And in November, winter sports are back with a vengeance. Alpine skiing and snowboarding, Nordic combined and cross-country, bobsleigh and ski jumping. If it happens on snow, it happens on Eurosport. November, a smash month for tennis, rugby union and winter sports on Eurosport.
This is Santa Pod, just outside Poddington in Bedfordshire. This is Britain's premier drag racing strip, and this is the final of the FIA World Drag Racing Championships. Well, we start with the pro stocks, and lining up in the near lane, Paul Tammy Brander, and the black and white machine of Jari Könele, closest to the camera as we look at it from here. And beautiful weather for this European Championship finals meeting at Santa Pod. Jari Könele, the favourite here. Paul Brander with a new Bob Glidden engine in his Mustang. Brander, the number 4 qualifier, ran a 7.2 in qualifying and does it again to win his quarter against Jari Könele. The second race, Marco Malmgren in the blue and white machine, and Kjell Hauger in the all light blue car. Here he is, closer to the camera. Malmgren's Oldsmobile Cutlass. Kjell Hauger with a Ford Mustang. Great launch by Hauger. And both of them looking to put it inside the 7-second qualifying mark. And they both are. And a late charge up the strip. Great pedaling there from Michael Malmgren to win that one. 7.185. His reaction time 0.56, but Kjell Hauger's was 0.47, so I don't know quite how he managed to lose that one. Nicholas Anderson, and closest to the camera there, the all-red machine of Rone Istra. Nicholas Anderson, the championship leader, there he is. Number 3 qualifier with a 7.12. Noise Rone Istra, another of the Firebirds, and Istra really not on it Nicholas Anderson gets through with a 7.145 to the 7.333 of Rune Ustra. Quicker RT from Nicholas Anderson as well. Altogether a better lane. Tommy Lane, the outright favourite. He's the reigning Pro Stock European champion, the Silver Firebird, the #1 qualifier in the weekend. And Jakob Ferrer in his car, a car which he rolled at Hockenheim, comes up short by 3/10. 7.117 to 7.481. Tommy Lane, a great reaction time as well, 0.475. So Tommy Lane goes through against Jakob Ferrer to face Paul Brander in the semis. Michael Malmgren goes through against Nicholas Anderson. On a field of 8 for the funny cars, Alex Yoon goes through on a bye, and out of the 7 entries we then have 3 races. So the near lane, Leif Helander, the blue and red car, against Deso Krivan, the orange and black machine here. Swede Leif Helander, the #4 qualifier, ran a 6.22. And the Dodge Avenger in the other lane gets close to that, but that's not good enough for 6.24 because Leif Helander goes through on a 6.16.2, which is a pretty impressive time. Helander not good on the reaction, 0.558 though. Near lane, Michael Kagarat in the green Quaker State machine versus Urs Embacher in the black car. Urs Embacher, the Dodge Daytona he bought from Urs Erbacher, doesn't get a good start, and Michael Kagarat just destroys him there. 6.407, his reaction time 0.524. Embacher got away better, 0.482, but he blew on the straight. So Kagarat goes through there. Leif Andreasen, the green and black machine closest to us, and Urs Erbacher, the man who sold his Mustang last year, the green and silver machine here, another Quaker State car. Leif Andreasen in the Firebird, qualified 3rd at 6.2, but Urs Erbacher suffering problems, means really no race at all for Leif Andreasen, goes through on 6.334. Great reaction time, 0.497. Urs Erbacher's reaction time, 0.126. He pulled a red there, allowing Leif Anderson to go through against Michael Kagarat. June and Helander feature in the other quarter. Peter Beck's already gone through on a bye in the top fuel dragsters, and he could still be the #1, qualifying with a European record in qualifying of 5.77. Here we have the black rail of Jommel Roivas against the white car of David Wilson. Wilson in the far lane from the camera, and he is just destroyed. Roivas wins. He'll go up against Peter Beck in the semi-final. Beck's already won on their 2 encounters this year. So Jommel Roivas goes through. Here we see the second race, Rob Turner against Faye Fisher. Faye Fisher in the blue car, close to camera on this side now as we see her. All Britain affair. Rob Turner in stage, greens from both of them. Turner won at Santa Pod earlier in the year. Faye Fisher qualified 7th, but can't quite match up to Rob Turner here. 5.999 to 6.410. Race 3 then, Doug Bond, the red car, closest to camera here, against Peter Schürfer, and this is him here. Schürfer, the German, running a small block Chevy against all the other big block monsters, but what a launch. He's had an incredible season, keeps that alive with 6.125, reaction time of 5.32 against 6.897 for Doug Bond with the big block engine, reaction time of 0.509. So Schürfer goes through in that one to face Rob Turner of Great Britain, and Jommel Roivas and Peter Beck face up in the other quarter. So Pro Stock then into the semis. Paul Brander versus Tommy Lane, the favourite, and Brander will really have to work hard. Tommy Lane launches on the left-hand lane as you look at it right now, and Lane with a great start. Now he has to go through and beat Michael Malmgren to win the championship, but with a 7:088 and another quick reaction time, he looks on target for that. Michael Malmgren here, the blue and white machine. There he is, the Panasonic car, and he really needs to win this one to keep his championship chances alive. If Nicholas Anderson wins, he'll be the European Pro Stock champion for 88-98. Very close indeed. 718 to 720. So Michael Malmgren, 7183. Nicholas Anderson on 7203. So Nicholas Anderson takes the championship. And he will face Tommy Lane in the final. Top fuel then, and Britain's Barry Sheevels versus Jens Nybo in the Denbler Arvis Rail. If Barry Sheevels wins, he becomes top fuel champion, the first Briton ever to win the European Championship title, and he gets to do it at home. So Barry Sheevels wins with a new top fuel speed mark, 297.11 miles an hour. That's an all-time record with a 4:9:54. Not the best reaction time, 0.527, but it was enough as Jens Nybo fails. Barry Sheevels is the European top fuel champion. So in the other semi, Anita Muckela versus Monica Oberg, the two Scandinavian ladies. Muckela, the second quickest qualifier with a 5:03 versus Oberg, the winner at Mantorp Park. And Anita Muckela clinches that one, 5:1:52 against Monica Oberg's 5:1:20. So Barry Sheevels goes through and will face Anita Muckela in the final. On to the funny cars then, and this is the first semi. Leif Helander versus Alex Yoon. There is Leif Helander's car, both getting a green. Helander, the Swede, with his Saab against number one qualifier Alex Yoon, who didn't race in the quarters. Yoon wins 6:110 and 225.56 miles an hour. Near lane, Leif Andreasen versus Michael Kagerad in the Quaker State car. Very good launch indeed from Kagerad. Quick RT, 0.444. And 6:26 to 6:49. The Quaker State man gets it. The Mustang is the winner. So here's how they go through. Michael Kagerad will face Alex Yoon in the final. So the top fuel rails, Jarmo Roivas versus Peter Beck. Peter Beck in the black and yellow machine, both in stage cleanly. Two championship leaders, and both will want to win this one. Peter Beck damaged the car in final qualifying run, had to borrow an axle from Tommy Lane, so the car not at its best, but he runs Jarmo Roivas very close indeed. 5.797 is the winning time there. Rob Turner and Peter Schürfer in the red rail in the left-hand lane. Two 5-second men, Schürfer from Germany, Rob Turner from Great Britain in front of his home crowd, and he blitzes through. Well, a fail for Schürfer, and Rob Turner runs in at 5:893. So a comfortable win for him. He goes through into the final, and he will face Jarmo Roivas. So the Pro Stock final is all down to Nicholas Anderson. Can he beat Tommy Lane? Nicholas Anderson, the new Pro Stock champion. Tommy Lane, last year's champion, missed the first round here in Santa Pod, which definitely affected his championship chances. But if he can win at the end of the season, he'll be a happy man. 7:101 to 7:135. Not too much to choose between them. 34 hundredths. And just 1 mile an hour quicker is Tommy Lane. So Nicholas Anderson comes up short. Tommy Lane, the winner. But Nicholas Anderson is the European Pro Stock champion. So the top fuel rails, Barry Sheevels on the left as we look at it versus Anita Mäkelä. And Sheevels' main objective here, apart from winning, obviously, is to try and do a 300-mile-an-hour run. And that will be a first at Santa Pod for him. Good clean launch, very quickly away. He has Anita Mäkelä beaten in the first second. 494 and 294.10, doesn't quite cut the 300-mile-an-hour barrier. So Barry Sheevels, the winner in Santa Pod and the first Briton to win the European Top Fuel Championship. So to the funny cars and dramas for Alex Yoon's pit. They couldn't get his car to run. 15 men working on the car still couldn't get it sorted. So into the final, Michael Kagarad's stage is alone. And this will be a demonstration run really for the funny car man. And that's reflected in the time, 7:8:37 and 117.8 miles an hour. But it was effectively a bye in the final, so Michael Kagarad is the winner. But it's Leif Andreasen who is the European Top Fuel Funny Car Champion. And finally, we come to the top fuel rails. Joma Roivas versus Rob Turner. This is Rob Turner in stage. The championship already decided, but the Briton, like Barry Sheevels, will want to win at home. Didn't get a great start. And Joma Roivas blows him away. The Finn 5.746, and problems for Turner right from the word go. Well, no victory at home at Santa Pod for him. But the European Championship goes to Peter Beck. The Swiss decided it again at Santa Pod the last round.
Glücklich, um Gottes Willen, was ist denn da passiert? Rein ins Kiesbett und noch dazu
This is Montoya starting in 10th place. Franchitti up ahead of him, 4th on the grid, remember. Jimmy Vasser starting 3rd on row 2 with Franchitti behind Papis and Mark Blundell. High impact. Magnussen ruled out of the race. Moreno lost a couple of laps but restarted. And the race itself restarted on lap 99. Restarted with a tremendous battle for the lead between Montoya and Franchitti.
Hier beim nächsten Wettbewerb Stockser, ich habe es eben gerade erwähnt, hier kommt es auf die Technik drauf an. Denn alle Kettensägen sind gleich genormt in dieser Disziplin. Ich muss 2 Scheiben abschneiden, habe dafür 10 cm Platz. Und die Kettensäge hat 91,66 Kubikzentimeter.
Also das war sehr, sehr knapp zwischen den beiden. Matt Bush, auch ein großer Spezialist dieser Disziplin.
Aber da hat er Probleme mit seiner Kettensäge. Und das ist natürlich nicht gut für Matt Bush. Oh, also das sah überhaupt nicht gut aus.
Ob das noch eine gute Zeit gibt, ist fraglich. Also ich finde es immer mal wieder schön, den Sägen zu lauschen. Und hier sieht man, dass ein Cookie nicht vernünftig abgeschnitten wurde.
Well, as my friend
mit diesem Cut.
takes a little luck with this too. You got to get good wood. You got to get a good saw.
Man braucht gutes Holz, man braucht eine gute Säge.
You know, it looks all even, but in some ways.
Es sieht zwar immer alles gleich aus, aber man hat da noch so einige Probleme. Denn es geht hier wirklich um Hundertstel. Und da hat er nicht unrecht. Dennis Kahun. Harry Burnsworth und Roland Eslinger. Eslinger, der Sieger der 93er Timbersport-Serie. Ein Mann, auf den man auf jeden Fall aufpassen muss, Oliver.
Dieser Mann hat Oberarme wie Baumstämme, auch wenn man es gerade nicht sieht. Aber der hat echt drauf. Trotzdem wird er hier nur Zweiter.
Ja, und ich freue mich auch schon auf den One-Man-Buck. Da wird auch eine Menge gesägt. Und hier Dennis Cohn auf Platz Nummer 1.
Vor Mike Sullivan, Harry Burnsworth, Roland Esslinger und Melvin Lenz.
Arden Coulter Senior, jawohl, das hier ist der Vater von Jamie Coulter. Und Arden, der ist mittlerweile 65 Jahre alt. Einer der Top-Männer. Und er selber ein Second-Generation Lumberjack, aber sein Gegner Mark Etcheberry ein wirkliches Tier.
Er ist ein absolutes Tier und ich glaube, selbst Roland Esslingers Oberarme können da nicht mehr mithalten. Und Mark Etcheberry ist auch schon kurz vor dem Drive, also vor dem Durchschlag des Holzes, und da hat er gewonnen.
Aber ich finde es einfach klasse, dass Arden Coulter Senior immer noch mitmacht. Und da sieht man auch ganz deutlich, bei der Timbersport Series, da kommt es nicht nur auf Kraft an, nicht nur auf Jugend, sondern auch auf Erfahrung. Deswegen machen auch noch Leute wie Arden Coulter Senior mit. Und da haben wir Matt Bush und Harry Burnsworth. Matt Bush übrigens verheiratet mit Nancy. Die beiden haben eine Tochter Jamie und einen Sohn Harry Jr. Und Harry Jr. gilt mittlerweile als einer der besten Nachwuchs-X-Men in den Vereinigten Staaten in Nordamerika.
Hey man, what are you looking at?
Hey man, schau dir doch den Block, den du gerade geschlagen hast, nochmal an. Was geht dir da durch den Kopf?
Just the placement of my axe into the wood. Front looked pretty good, but the back should have had a bit
Also
more
das sah eigentlich sehr gut aus, alles.
Striking it off, it cost me one extra hit.
Ich habe mein Bestes gegeben, aber am Ende brauchte ich doch noch einen Extra-Hit. Und da Melvin Lenz und Mike Sullivan.
Also dieses Aufeinandertreffen wird extrem interessant. Mel Lenz schon auf der anderen Seite.
Mel Lenz ist übrigens vom Beruf Holzfäller. Kein professioneller Lumberjack. Der Unterschied besteht darin, dass professionelle Lumberjacks fast nur an diesen Wettbewerben teilnehmen.
Ja, und Melvin Lenz hat noch ein Leben außerhalb dieses Sports, auch wenn er viel Zeit für das Training investiert.
Okay, he's the top man.
Tommy Sanders und ich glaube, uns beiden würde das Gleiche passieren, oder?
Ganz das Gleiche. Aber Spaß.
Freude ist doch immer noch die beste Freude.
Na klar. Ich warte auf John Hughes.
These guys are really good.
I'm killing McInnes. Watch
Wer will Jerry McInnes umbringen? Na. Also so nicht.
Also diese Zuschauer aus den Neuengland-Staaten sind wirklich der Hammer. Sobald sie merken, dass die Lumberjacks nicht ganz dabei sind, wird sofort nachgegangen.
Penny Elvis hat sogar ein bisschen Angst.
Ja, kann ich verstehen. Das ist ungefähr so, als wenn sie in Tennis-Matches zu pfeifen anfangen und zu murren.
Was denn da was?
Dann so schnell wie möglich zum Ausgang. Ich kenne die Geschichte, David.
One-Man-Buck. Da sehen wir Gaston Duperret als Sekundanten. Und Mark Etcheberry.
Also ich glaube, da ist der Sieger jetzt schon klar. Yep, Mark Etcheberry holt sich den Sieg. Und hier sehen wir Mike Sullivan auf der einen Seite und Gaston Duperret auf der anderen mit seiner Frau als Sekundantin. Ja, und diese Sekundanten haben eigentlich nur eine Aufgabe. Sie sollen dafür sorgen, dass die Säge relativ kühl und feucht bleibt. Ansonsten bleibt sie nämlich stecken und das wäre ganz schlecht. Mike Sullivan wird als erster fertig. Gaston Duperret mit leichten Schwierigkeiten.
Dennis Dawn hier am Start. Er wird unterstützt von Penny Halverson. Das ist übrigens erlaubt. Ja, die Halversons hatten eine Menge Pech. 1996. Die beiden betreiben ja ein Sägewerk. Das ist damals abgebrannt. Und das war ein wirklich schwerer Rückschlag. Aber mittlerweile nehmen sie doch wieder an diesen Wettbewerben teil. Und das finde ich wirklich klasse, dass sie sich nicht aufgegeben haben.
Ja, vor allem, wo noch die ganze Ausrüstung ebenfalls mitverbrannt ist.
So, und da haben wir Melvin Lenz und Roland Esslinger. Und das sind zwei Spezialisten in dieser Disziplin. Also Roland beim One-Man-Buck zuzuschauen, ist einfach gigantisch, Oliver.
Roland Esslinger, der Champion der 93er Timbersport Series, und Melvin Lenz, die Nummer 2 der damaligen Serie und die Nummer 1 der jetzigen Serie. Wer wird sich durchsetzen können? Momentan sieht es so aus, Melvin Lenz gewinnt. Da kann auch Jim Taylor bei Roland Esslinger nichts ändern. Also für Roland Esslinger wird sich da keine gute Zeit ergeben.
Es gibt übrigens zwei verschiedene Arten von Sägen. Einmal die Modern Packs und dann einmal die M-Tooth-Design. Und hier sehen wir so eine Scheibe. Da hat er Probleme gehabt. Ja, da sägt die Säge dann nicht richtig. Hat ein bisschen Pech gehabt.
Es gibt ja zwei verschiedene Arten von Sägen. Das hier ist eine Modern Pack Säge, eine sogenannte. Und dann gibt es auch noch die sogenannte M-Tooth-Säge. Der Name kommt daher, dass die Zähne der Säge aussehen wie kleine M's.
Ja, Jim Taylor, er hat diese Säge perfektioniert. Richard Dick Slingerland hat die Original Pack-and-Raker-Säge benutzt und sie dann halt noch verbessert. Deswegen nennt sich die Modern Packs. Und die Modern Packs sind eigentlich besser für weiches Holz, während man die M-Tooth-Design-Sägen ja für härteres Holz benutzt. Diese Sägen werden hauptsächlich hergestellt von Jim Taylor, Gaston Duperrey und Jean-Pierre Mercier.
Mel Lance und Mike Sullivan teilen sich momentan mit 16 Punkten den ersten Platz im Sawing vor Mark Etcheberry und Dennis wird sehr interessant.
Hot Sort, 3 Cuts, 3 Cookies müssen sauber abgeschnitten werden. Es gibt eine 45 Sekunden Aufwärmphase, dann muss die Säge ausgestellt werden. Dann muss ich beide Hände auf das Loch legen, die Säge anschmeißen und 3 Scheiben abschneiden, wie Penny Harrison es hier macht.
Klingt einfacher als es ist. Aber Penny Harrison ganz souverän fertig. Ob das Bestzeit war?
Rick Halverson hat übrigens eine 250er Honda. Und da haben wir jetzt Mike Sullivan damals noch mit seiner 500 Kubikzentimeter Suzuki gegen Gaston Duperrey. Und wie gesagt, Gaston, der stellt solche Sägen her. Die kosten bis zu $5.000 und Mike Sullivan, er hat Probleme.
Also ich glaube, mir ist jetzt klar, warum er die Säge abgelegt hat.
Es kommt halt nicht nur auf die Kubik drauf an. Diese Säge ist eher geeignet für dicke, große Holzstämme. Also 500 Kubikzentimeter vielleicht doch ein bisschen zu viel. Hauptsächlich werden Rotex Schneemobilmotoren benutzt oder man benutzt Motorradmotoren.
Der Marken Yamaha, Suzuki. Was gibt's noch sonst? Honda. Auf alle Fälle ziemlich heftige Geräte.
Ja, weltweit gibt es mittlerweile schon 20.000 Lumberjacks. Allein davon sind in Nordamerika 10.000 ansässig.
Und es ist wirklich nur ein Gerücht, dass diese Jungs alle doof sind. Im Gegenteil, wir haben Leute wie Firmen, Geschäftsführer, wir haben Anwälte. Es gibt wirklich jeden Beruf.
Es gibt einen, der arbeitet an der Wall Street, das heißt an der Börse. Und die Jungs, die haben einfach eine Menge Spaß hier an dieser Sache. Das ist ein Ausgleich für die. Ich denke mal, jeder kennt das, wenn man den ganzen Tag nur hinterm Schreibtisch sitzt, dann muss man einfach mal was anderes machen. Klar gibt es natürlich auch Leute wie Rick Halverson, die zum Beispiel ein Sägewerk betreiben oder auch wie Mel Lance, die Holzfäller sind. Es gibt auch einige professionelle Lumberjacks. Ich hatte das ja vorhin schon einmal angesprochen. So, Rick Halverson, er ein Spezialist. Er ist immer ein Weltrekordhalter.
Und kann Melvin Lance deutlich schlagen. Er fragt sich, wo ist denn Melvin? Wo bleibt er denn?
Ja, da ist er schon lange fertig. Der gute Rick Halverson.
In this field of competitors, you gotta...
Ja, es wird eine Menge gesägt hier bei der 94er Timber Sport Serie im DSF. Und wir nähern uns damit auch schon wieder dem Ende dieser Sendung.
Ich bin wirklich gespannt. Rick Halverson ist sicher auf der Einzahl, aber was kommt danach?
Besser gesagt, wer kommt danach?
Gute Frage. Wir werden es gleich erfahren.
Serious crazy. Serious.
Rick Halverson is with...
Right Spunson digs in, and he is upside down. The boat literally destroyed. Now, this presented 16 seconds of drama where everyone was holding their breath. Hanauer, even though he was encapsulated, nobody knew where he was or what his status was. If you keep an eye to the left of your screen, you're going to notice a helmet bobbing up and down. This is a tribute to the safety equipment, as Hanauer indeed did survive this awful crash. You can see him moving around to the left of your screen now. But Chip was encapsulated in the capsule that was designed by by his mentor, Bernie Little. A lot of people say that's what saved his life in this incident. Hanauer was working the inside lane. Everything was going his way. Let's again take a look at this and see if we can kind of figure out what it was. As a rule, air will play a major role here. See if the boat stays down. No, you can see a little bit of air getting underneath the sponson. It rocks it over to the right, digging in the right sponson. Now he is literally just along for the ride. Another view of the incident that took place in the 1995 San Diego Bay Fair. You notice the right side of the boat got up. When it came down, it literally dug in. Hanauer at this point in time, like we said, is just along for the ride as the boat digs in. And unlimited hydroplanes have a tendency to disintegrate. Even with deep pockets like the Budweiser team, this was a major catastrophe in this sport. Now we go over to San Diego, California, 1996. Mike Hansen in the middle of the screen in the awesome DeWalt Tool Special showed you just how quick you can get in trouble in hydroplane racing. Something broke on the left side of the boat. He hooked and immediately came back to the right. Goes upside down. Again, the big question is, what condition is the driver in? This is going to give you an opportunity to see the replay of what actually happened as he's making a move, and look how close he gets to his competitor. He's running in the second and third lane, but something had to break on that boat. Now, earlier in the day, they were working on the boat, on the sponson area, or the bottom of the boats. Speculation is something was just went astray. Mike's upside down on the boat at this time. It'll give you an opportunity to see exactly how these safety crews work. You're going to see what they do and how they do it. This is a perfect example. If we had a textbook on extracting a driver from a wrecked vehicle, you got to remember, each person has their own job. This particular safety crew member